This is Creepy and Geeky. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, Harper Smith returns to the show to talk about The Thing and the Hateful Eight. But first, it's time to talk to Donna about what we've been up to in the last week. How are you, Donna?
Hey Robert, I am doing well. I'm
Yay.
sweating like a hooker in church because it's hot as hell here.
Same.
Already starting off the episode with some bullshit, but it's hot. It's already, I mean, we're not even in summer yet, man, and it is sweltering here.
It's currently 83 at the moment right here. Thankfully, it's partly cloudy, so and that's it.
Jeez, at
That's in
least we
the
got
Atlanta
that.
area. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I'm sitting on 87 and it
whew,
feels like 90.
yikes. Yeah, no, no, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Well, let's stay in the air conditioning, and I hope everybody else is staying in the air conditioning as they listen to us.
I hope so too.
So, what have you been up to in this last week? What do you got for me?
Am I kicking it off?
Yeah,
We're
you're
already
always
starting?
you're always kicking it off. I always get you first.
So, as usual, I only brought a couple of things. So, the very first thing I have to talk to you about is the Alien Romulus trailer.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
Uh,
dropped this week, and I am poring over it. I'm obsessing over it. I really should dial it back a little, but I can't help but watch it a lot. um, this one is really interesting to me because it has both the alien vibe to it
mm-hmm.
and also the aliens vibe to it. And from what I
Right.
understand, it's supposed to be set like smack
Yeah,
dab in the middle of
right
those two
between
films,
them. Yeah,
which makes sense to why it feels like both. I'm very much excited. It has all of the claustrophobic, kind of what's going to happen around every corner of Alien, but then it also has a huge cast and probably a lot of really interesting kills. I don't
yeah.
know. I'm smitten as a kitten. I could not tell you how happy I am to see this trailer.
As somebody who hasn't really been super into the Alien movies,
Hmm.
I'm definitely interested in this one and excited to see where this one's going. Especially because it's Fede Alvarez who did the 2013 Evil Dead. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
and
that
Don't
already
Breathe,
is,
right?
yeah, yep, and Don't Breathe. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he's bringing to us.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't. I mean, now it seems to be getting a little bit more love. The 2013 Evil Dead, but I
Yeah,
thought that
yeah,
was a really good outing,
yeah.
personally.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm excited. I want to see what they do with it. I want to see what he brings to it. And, it'll be the first time in a while since, because Ridley Scott did the last two. Um, and we'll see. He's still producing it, so he's still connected to it. But
Right.
I'm excited to see the new stuff, see what happens. Um, but yeah, no, I think I'm cautiously optimistic as usual.
That's usually my mode, cautiously
Yeah.
optimistic. But I am excited. I mean, it gave me all of those feels, and even from them having the title kind of coming in like Alien, I was just like, oh my God, this is giving me goosebumps. I feel like a kid again. I love when any movie makes me feel like I'm a kid all over again, and this trailer definitely did all of that. It hit me in the feels, as the kids like to say.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited, and I'm hoping it'll be good. I'm definitely gonna go watch it though. So,
Yeah, I'm definitely going.
speaking of trailers, I saw a trailer this week that I thought was a lot of fun. It's for a movie called Piece by Piece, and it's a biopic of um uh,
Pharrell.
Pharrell Williams. Yeah, you must have you seen the trailer?
I did see the trailer. It looks phenomenal, and it looks like
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
it's a Lego movie. It's all made with it's made by the people who make Lego, like the Lego movies. Like this is
Hmm.
literally the fifth Lego movie after the two official Lego movies, the Lego Batman movie and the Lego Ninjago movies. This is going to be the fifth like theatrically released. official Lego movie. So it's interesting that like they were like, yeah, okay, let's do let's do that with Pharrell. Um, which is very interesting because like I get that Pharrell's kind of gone into more of a family friendly
Mhm.
vibe of late in the like maybe last decade and stuff, but before that he was definitely not family friendly at all.
I mean,
So
his music definitely
no, that's what I'm
wasn't.
saying. So and being a fan of Pharrell Williams, I'm excited about this. So I've been a fan of his since the NERD days. So I'm really excited to.
Yeah, there was a really cute piece in that trailer, not to be punny, but there was a
Yeah,
really
yeah,
cute piece in there where I could hear them playing. I don't know if you remember this group, but back in the 90s, there was this group called Rex and Effects, and they had the song called Rump Shaker.
yeah.
And
Okay,
so
I
they
quote
played that.
we quote Rump Shaker all the time in this house.
It's like it's like a classic jam. So when they started playing that music in the back, I guess he was talking to Teddy Riley in the studio. I
Yeah,
was like, oh my gosh, how are they going to get away with this? Because people are
yeah,
going to want to take their kids. So, but I'm sure they thought that all through.
yeah. I
It's
hope so.
hilarious, but I guarantee you it's going to be nominated for a bunch of Oscars because
Oh God,
that's
I hope so.
it's
Like
just
it looks fantastic.
it
I mean,
looks fun.
I don't know how he got away with like Lego agreeing to it, but I'm just like, okay, I'm all in though, you know?
Honestly, it makes perfect sense with Pharrell though. Everything he does is so creative and unusual.
He got Daft Punk to come back to be in the movie.
Exactly.
Like Daft Punk was done.
They
So,
were split. Yeah.
yeah. So, I'm like, all right, I'm down, you know? I mean, I was down anyway, but you know, it's just like I'm really cool. Like I was super excited for this one. So, as soon as I saw it, I was like, what? So, yeah. I'm glad you
Yeah,
saw
and
the
you and I
trailer,
have
but
always talked about how we've been fans of them anyway. So I mean,
yes, yeah.
I'll listen to that shit all day, backwards and
Hell yeah.
forwards.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. 100%. So, all right. What else you got?
Well, what did you see? Don't play all my cards.
No,
It's like playing Uno with
we
this
do
dude.
one and one. We do one and one. That was my one. You
That
did
was your one.
aliens.
Okay. All right, fine. I'll allow it. So my my other only that I had that I brought to the table. I know we have one shared in common.
Yeah.
But the other one was that there's been talks of Elle Fanning starring in the next Predator film,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
and they're titling it Badlands. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm keeping everything crossed that it's going to be a Western because that would just delight me to no
Well,
end.
from what I've heard, it's set in the future.
Ugh.
And it's directed by the same guy who directed Prey.
Yeah, I knew
So,
that.
so
Trachtenberg
that,
is coming back.
yeah. So, which is interesting because they're supposed to be making a sequel to Prey also. So, I'm not sure exactly if now is he not doing the sequel or is he doing this movie and then going back to doing the sequel. So either way, I don't care. Like, all I'm in for whatever because
Just give
I
me
dig
a
the
Predator
Predators.
Western. I want a Predator
Well, and there's
Western.
supposedly a Predator Samurai movie.
That's beautiful. I want that.
So yeah, no, I think that's what's great about it is like you could set Predator in any time period in any other setting and everything. It'd be really cool. So
Yeah, I think we've had this discussion before, the world
yeah,
building and seeing how other people handle it. Because clearly, if they've been hunting people and doing this for ages and years, it's wonderful to see the different time periods that they've been in. I'm over the
yeah,
moon about this.
absolutely.
I don't
Yeah.
know about it being in the future, though. I want a Western. Damn it.
I don't think it's supposed to be like in the future. But I'm not positive. So it could just be near future. I don't. Hopefully, it's just
Oh,
near future. So I don't know. It doesn't matter. Predator movie is a Predator movie, and I'm excited no matter what. See, when it comes
I'm
to
with you on that.
aliens, I'm soft on it, but Predator, I'm all in. So I like those ugly motherfuckers.
Oh my gosh. Hey, xenomorphs ain't cute. I mean, I like them too, but
Yeah.
you know, I just like them a little bit more, I guess.
Speaking of the Fannings, I just saw Dakota Fanning in The Watchers.
Ooh,
So
how
that
was
was what
that?
I saw. It was really good. It's interesting too because it goes in a direction that you can kind of suspect, given the trailers and everything,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't say the trailers give it away at all. Because I actually did not suspect it, and afterward I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense."
Oh
So
wow.
So yeah, so it's really good. I thought it was really fantastic. Um, it's a great debut film for M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. Which I can't remember her name right now, which
Yeah, you're gonna have to look it up. I can't
I know
remember.
I'm doing it right now. Do 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 do. Ishana Night Shyamalan. So Ishana.
Yeah,
So
Ishana.
yeah.
Let's leave it at that. That's
Yes.
good.
Yes. And then which is interesting too, because his other daughter is playing the singer in his movie, The Trap. Or no, Trap, just Trap.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so yeah, at the end of the trailer, it's like featuring music from this woman, and then I was looking it up, and I was like, it's literally his daughter, like his other
Oh my
daughter.
goodness.
She's been a musician for a while, like a singer for a while, so she's been putting out albums and such. And so I was like, oh, I didn't even know that. Just like Ashana has been actually directing, but she was directing episodes of his TV show, The Servant, on
Oh
Apple TV.
wow.
Yeah, so yeah, so I
Yeah, I've
mean,
said
it's
it before and I'll say it again. If my dad was a famous director, I would do what the other sibling did. I would be a singer. I would not I would not want to do because it's always going to be that
it's
comparison, you
well,
know?
and that's what's happened is that I've seen people talking about how some of the reviews on this are um basing it on his work and not her own work. And so I'm like, then that's not fair. That's not a fair
It's not
compare.
fair to her.
It's not fair to compare anyway, because you're just like, let her stand on her own work and her own
Right.
merits. So
Judge it on what she brought to the table and her vision of what she created with this film.
exactly.
Yeah, I would be a baker. I wouldn't because I wouldn't want the bullshit. You know what I mean? And then you're always going to have people second guessing or saying, "Oh, well, her dad probably told her to frame it this way." Or no, she
Right.
has her own vision of how she wants to do things. It really pisses me off. I know y'all can't tell in my voice, but it does.
We can kind of tell.
I mean, Jesus, give her a break. Damn.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's just dumb. I think it's a fantastic movie. I think everybody who sees it will hopefully enjoy it. You never know. Some people just might not vibe with it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But those who do, I think you'll get there's really good performances in it. And it's got a really interesting story. So, and it's not an original story, it's based on a novel.
Right.
So it's just really fun. I enjoyed it. It's dark, it's spooky. um it's and I can tell you more off air, but I don't want to spoil
Yeah,
anything
don't
for.
don't spoil it for anybody.
Yeah.
But I'm
So
glad you said it was good. I mean, it
yeah.
looks intense. The trailer definitely had me intrigued.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely a really good movie. I'm glad I went out and watched it, and like it was getting really bad Rotten Tomatoes, like it's at like 27% or something like that. And I'm like, whatever, I'm still gonna go watch it because I don't pay attention to Rotten Tomatoes anyway.
Yeah, nah.
Um, but speaking of things that are getting reviewed kind of mid road, it's only mid road because it's either you like it or you don't right now.
Hmm.
But Donna and I both are bringing on the Acolyte, the new Star Wars show on Disney Plus, which I thought was fantastic in those first two episodes. So, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. They had me intrigued from the very first one. By the time I got to the second one, I was like, oh my gosh, this season is going to be phenomenal. This is
Right.
something I didn't expect to see in the storyline. And I loved seeing all of the force sensitive people.
Yeah.
I kind of geeked out quite a bit when I watched it, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about this show is it's set 100 years before the Phantom Menace. So it's in a time where the Jedi like are numerous, and they've been the guardians of peace for hundreds of years at this point, with no real person or people that could stand up to their power. So it's kind of in an era where they're kind of pompous about it.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of what plays into it. There's a mystery going on. There's mysteries within mysteries. So it's a lot of fun. I'm hoping that it continues. I did see a review that said from people who saw the first four episodes, because reviewers got to see the first four episodes, and
Mm,
they say that it kind of hopefully it comes back around, but they said that by the fourth episode some of the stuff gets underplayed or whatever, like the direction they're going in that we're real hyped about could potentially get undermined, because maybe Star Wars, like maybe Lucasfilm is a little too afraid of going out there that far. They don't want to um piss off, the general audience, I guess. But I'm like, who
right.
cares? Just do it. Take chances. Have some fun with this, and do something that's interesting rather than,
The
playing for the
same
middle
thing.
ground. Yeah. So, so we'll see. But that does bring me to a something that I do want to mention, is that my son and I are starting a brand new podcast called As Father and Son, which will be and we've been talking about this for a while. It's going to be a Star Wars podcast. We were going to, and we're still going to do it this way. We're going to talk about each movie and each show, but we're actually going to start off with the Acolyte right away, and we're going to go week by week. After each episode, we're going to drop a new episode talking about it and talking about what we thought about it, and um, theories and whatever, and going into it as much as possible.
Oh, wow.
So
That'll be
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So it should be a lot of fun. That'll be dropping soon. We still need to record the first episode, but we'll be doing that within the next couple of days, and yeah, so expect that usually probably within, a few days after each episode once we get
Well,
going
that's
on it.
something I
So
definitely will look forward to hearing you
yeah.
two guys nerd out about it.
Oh, and it's ridiculous how much we nerd out on Star Wars. We You think my episodes are long here? The these Star Wars episodes could get really long. Um
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you though. I'm enjoying the Acolyte so much because, finally I have something that doesn't revolve around the Skywalkers in some way.
yes. Yeah.
I'm not that I don't love them. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that. There's other things going on in the fucking galaxy,
Right.
I mean, like you said, it's just I we need more character building and
Yeah.
other things. I mean, granted, I know that they're a very special family. We've heard it ad nauseum.
Well, I think that's what's made that's what I think that's what's great about the Disney Plus shows, is that they can get away from that, and Mandalorian, where it's kind of like, where we did get Luke in there, that Luke wasn't the focus, and
He
so
wasn't, but I wish we didn't have him at all. I mean, that's
no, I agree. I think it'd be nice to get away, and I think that's what's great about the Acolyte and something like Andor, where it's aside from everything else that's going on, and and it is nice to see, because the Acolyte is set during the High Republic era. So if you're interested in what's going on in this show, check out some of the books and the comic books that are also going on, because they've been delving pretty deep into the High Republic era, in the books and the comic books. So definitely check
I
that
think
out.
I think one of the things I really like about this series too is that it's got that whole kind of Sam Spade detective work. We're trying to
Yeah,
figure out what's going on, and it's just I don't know. I love that whole noir aspect. I wish we would
yeah,
get more of this kind of thing in different shows,
yeah.
seeing the noir detective work done differently.
Yeah. No, I think, and that's, I'm not a big fan of the first two prequel movies. They're okay. They have good portions of them, but what I really liked in Attack of the Clones was Obi-Wan going off and, kind of doing his little detective thing, finding out
Right.
about the clones and stuff. And so that aspect was cool. So it's nice to see that happening in something like this as well. So yeah, definitely. And it's cool to see, this whole Jedi thing, because me personally, I get tired of Jedi focus a lot. So
Hmm.
stuff like the Mandalorian is cool, because I'm like, sort of, because then they brought in a Jedi with Grogu, and so so it's just like, okay. But it is cool though too, because they're going into more of, and I think this is what's interesting about, they're using the Jedi to then use them as a vehicle to focus on other Force users. So it's not just the Jedi. They're exploring they're going to get into more like not just the Jedi, not just the Sith, but the witches of Dathomir and other stuff that could other people who could potentially be using the Force. So that's what's a lot of fun with that.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to be talking about it on the new podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to listen to you guys. And then, of course, I'll just be bombarding you after every episode and going, did you see that?
Right. I will expect lots of messages. Not that we don't already talk like a ton.
Right.
But
Oh, my goodness.
but that's all I have for this week. Just yeah, I watched The Watchers. That piece by piece trailer. Everybody, please go check that out, and go check out The Acolyte as well. And go check out if you haven't seen it, go check out that Alien Romulus trailer. And what was the other thing that you brought this week?
Oh, the Predator, but we don't
Oh
have
yeah,
a trailer
Predator.
for that.
Yeah, we don't have anything.
We don't
Just
have anything for
little
that.
news bits. Yeah, yeah. I'm excited though, so we'll see. I love it. More new Predator, more new Evil Dead coming. And I know people are
Like
like,
a
"Oh
kid
my
in the
God, there's
candy
no,"
store.
and everybody's like, "Oh, there's no new ideas." That's fine. Keep as long as you bring new ideas to old properties. That's all I care about. Have fun with those properties and don't
And
make
make
them.
it good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
don't.
Don't make them bad or boring or anything like that. And then
Mhm.
I'll be there for sure, 100%. And so will everybody else. They bitch, but they still go.
They still
So.
go. Everybody plunking their money down. We know you're
Yep.
going.
Yep. Exactly. All right. Well, why don't you let people know about your this week's episode that you got going on your podcast?
Oh, okay. So I decided to do something fun and have Doom in June. I know that sounds like a
Yes.
fun time, right? Just
Yeah.
Doom in June. And so this week I will be talking about Miracle Mile. And
Mm.
it's not a horror film, it is a cult classic film. Obviously, there's not going to be a happy ending, but I won't spoil too much about that. But it is one that stars Anthony Edwards and Mara Winningham. It's a 90s classic, and not too many people talk about it, but I'm hoping when you listen to my
Oh, okay.
episode, you'll go and watch it.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I saw a trailer for it not too long ago. I think probably it was probably in one of the um In Search of Darkness uh, documentaries that I probably saw something them talking about that, and I got curious about it, but I haven't watched it yet, so I'm
Yeah, it's a
excited. That's
hell of
cool.
a ride, and there's a lot of stars in it. And I'll give you a little trivia when you listen to my episode
Yeah,
about the two leads. It's actually
yeah,
really quite interesting between the two of them.
that's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, I'm excited to listen to that episode. I just listened to your Annihilation episode last night, so that was a lot of fun because I watched the movie earlier in the week, and so I was like, okay, so now I can listen to the episode, and I don't
I
always
hope
do
I
that.
didn't spoil
Sometimes
too much for you on that. I don't think I try not to be
no, well,
spoilery on that.
I watched the movie beforehand. I did been on my list for a long time anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, I wanted to make sure I watched it before I listened to it anyway. No, I don't think you spoiled anything in it. You do a pretty good job at like setting it up and then like veering off right when the action starts, and it's like, okay, yeah, I think you're doing a good job with that. So
Oh, good.
yeah. All right. Well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online also?
Okay. Well, I am on Instagram, Twitter. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
I think I'm on
most things.
Slasher. I never go there, but it's
Yeah.
Donna underscore the THA underscore dead. So you can find me there. Instagram is usually where I hang out, as Robert knows very well.
Yes.
But come over and listen to my podcast. I am just as dorky over there as I am here. I try to dial it back for you guys, but I can't make any promises. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we will talk to you next week. And don't forget, stay creepy. On today's episode, Harper Smith joins me for another episode of What's Your Favorite Double Feature with The Thing and The Hateful Eight. Harper is a film journalist and a film composer whose work is featured on the movies Puppet Master, Dr. Death, and Sorority Babes in the Slime Bowl Bolorama 2, as well as a two-time award winner for Best Score for their work on Stitches and Hangnail. Harper is also the composer of the music here on this very podcast. Welcome back to the show, Harper.
I am so happy to do this. I have not been on anyone's show for such a long time at this point, so I'm so excited just to talk about movies.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back. You were on a previous episode. I don't even remember which one it was now.
I
Uh,
don't even remember it. This is a couple of years ago.
yeah, it's been quite a while. I want to say it was on one of the series. You were going to possibly come on for one of the Chucky episodes, and then you couldn't make
Hmm,
that one. But I think you were on one of the other ones. Oh, you were on Halloween 1, 2, and 3.
that's right. Okay,
Right.
cool. I remember that.
Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, today we are talking about The Thing and The Hateful Eight, which on the surface, a lot of people probably wouldn't think, how do these two movies go together? But we're going to dig down into this and we're going to show you exactly how similar they are. I mean, most people could probably figure it out, but you know, but I have already covered both of these episodes previously on the podcast, both of them in two separate episodes, both with my most frequent guest star, Donna from the Dawn of the Dead podcast, but never together like this. And so this will be a fun experience talking about both of
Yeah,
these.
totally.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and start up with The Thing from 1982, a John Carpenter classic, which failed on release. But it had very stiff competition with E.T. So it,
I always laugh about that because, like,
it's so
these
different.
days, yeah, these days, like, you hear John Carpenter and a lot, obviously Halloween, but
Yeah.
most people that I talk to prefer The Thing. So, like, it's such a beloved movie.
Yeah.
But, like, when it came out, not only that, like, it came out the same day as Blade Runner, and they both bombed horribly. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's such a trip to think back to Blade Runner and The Thing didn't resonate with audiences then because, like, they're such classics now. And,
Yeah.
like, as much as I grew up just adoring ET, it's talked about so little now
Oh,
that
yeah.
it's crazy that that just slaughtered both of those movies.
Yeah, and that's what is really interesting about E.T. also is that it's one of those movies that it kind of dominated the 80s, but right
Mm-hmm.
after the 80s, it kind of like lost its luster in a lot of ways. And there's no reason for it. I think just people moved on to other
Well,
interesting things.
honestly, and this bums me out to have this theory, but I think it's because cynicism took over a lot in the 90s. And
Yeah,
it's like, I think since the 90s, we all kind of wanted the darker, depressing monster movies. So we
we're gonna bl-
gravitated that way.
we're gonna
We're
blame
like, we're like,
Tarantino on this one.
we're like, fuck you, happy alien. We want Kurt Russell with a flamethrower.
But I think that, I think that's interesting too, because I mean, even Spielberg himself kind of went in that direction because he did the happy alien stuff with um ET and Close Encounters and everything, and then went into doing War of the Worlds later on in the early 2000s. So, he kind of shot his own movie in the foot in a way. So I think it's
I
an
was
interesting
at
thing.
I was at a convention about 14 years ago, and John Carpenter was there talking about his career. And the moderator of the panel was going over his whole filmography. And then right after The Thing, he barely made it to The Thing. And Carpenter said, "Can I have the mic?" And he grabbed the mic. He goes, to paraphrase it, he was basically saying, like, yeah, like, let's not go through all the movies because they kind of have the same story. They didn't do well. No one saw them. And now they're classics to everyone. Like, let's just open it up for questions. It's like, dude, I could not love someone more.
Right? Like, and that's been the story of his career. Like, I guess other than Halloween, every other movie of his has been like maybe Starman. Um, but other than those two movies, I would say most of his filmography has been a bomb that became a cult classic.
Most
At
of it,
the
yeah,
at
yeah, for
least the
sure.
80s output, because once you hit the 90s, he starts getting a little uneven himself. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody can be perfect every time now. But I would argue
You know
his
what's
his Halloween to They Live is like perfect. That is a rock solid filmography that can't be touched.
Oh, totally. I think like I have an interesting opinion that like out of his filmography, there's only one movie that I sincerely do not like. Even the movies that are very much lesser Carpenter movies, I think to me, just to me, are more entertaining than most like a lot of up and coming directors' best movies.
Yeah.
You know, like I can even watch The Ward and get some value out of it and entertainment. And a lot of people, when that movie came out, were criticizing him like, "Oh, he's just doing the same tricks everyone else does." It's like, you guys realize he kind of invented most of those tricks?
Right.
Like,
He's doing the
you
same
know,
tricks because they're his tricks.
they're his tricks. But like, Memoirs of Invisible Man is the only film in his filmography that I just cannot do anymore. Like when I was a teenager, you know, you want to be a completist and pretend that you like everything that your favorite person does. But
Right.
as an adult, I revisited that one. I was just like, God, this is bad.
I
But
haven't
the
actually.
thing, oh,
Yeah.
uh-huh. No, I
Well,
was
no,
gonna
I
say
was
the
gonna.
thing. It like, yeah, it just holds up.
Yeah, no, the thing totally holds up. The thing is one of those ones that, you know, you can't touch that one. That one is a masterpiece, and probably while it's not my while it's not my favorite of his movies, I will argue that it's his best. It's probably his best
Mhm.
movie and stands above even Halloween. As much as people want to like say Halloween's his best movie, nah, The Thing is his best movie. Like I can't I
As
can argue
far
that all
as
day long.
like, as far as I agree with. I mean, obviously, I think Halloween's the best movie ever made. Like, fuck Citizen Kane, okay?
Oh yeah, fuck Citizen
Steel
Kane. This
Magnolia's what?
okay.
No,
I'm gonna go on record right here and say fuck Citizen Kane every fucking day because I think
yes.
Citizen Kane
Thank
sucks
you,
ass and
thank
it's a
you.
shit movie
Oh,
and people blow it up out of
so bad.
proportion because they're idiots.
my
You
wife
can
my
quote
wife
me.
is in film my wife is in film school right now for cinematography, and
Oh
like in her
fuck.
first couple classes they had her watch so many movies throughout the years, and that was one that she just hadn't seen, you know, prior. And she's like,
Mm.
"Oh, I get to watch Citizen Kane." I'm like, "I'm sorry." And she's like, "What? I thought that was like a classic." I was like,
I
and
mean,
she
it's a
watched it, she's like,
classic. It's a
"No, I
classic
can
piece of
see, I can
shit.
see why you have that opinion." Yeah. But like I was saying, I do think Halloween's the greatest film ever made. But as far as like, you find a director, and if you had to choose one movie of Carpenter's where it just feels like he's firing on all cylinders, and there isn't a
Mm.
single thing you would change about not a single frame you would change in his movie, I think it is The Thing, easily.
Yeah. I mean, I will put like so. Here's my thing: is that I I love The Thing. I think it's a great movie. I still, if you sat me down and said what what movie do I want to watch of John Carpenter's, all day, every day, I'm going to tell you They Live. That is
Mm-hmm.
my favorite. It's been my favorite since it came out of his.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't know. There's something about that movie that resonates more with me than any of his others. But The Thing is pretty close to it, and I would argue putting uh Big Trouble in Little China in the mix there too, because that is a fantastic movie. It's not horror so
A
much as
blast.
as
It's
as
just
a
a
sci-fi
blast.
fantasy comedy.
Yeah.
But
It's like a western with kung fu and guns.
right. And it's
Like, how
great
could you
too
not love
because
that?
Kurt Russell you think is the hero when you go into this movie, but no, he's the fucking sidekick in that one.
He's so bad at what he does in that
No,
movie.
it's so hilarious. But The Thing, he's so genius. He's great in this movie. And this
And
really is the movie that
it's just
cements,
so
I think,
dark.
Kurt. Oh yeah, and this movie I think cements Kurt Russell too as that kind of actor too. This guy who
Mm-hmm.
can play the action, and can do this kind of really dark uh movie as well that you see him do throughout his career and what he does best. And we'll get into that later with the other movie.
Mm-hmm.
But he plays these good brooding kind of, you know in this one he's not really dark or anything like that necessarily. The everything else around him is dark and he's got to do what he's got to do to get through it.
Well, it's always felt like to me like that in some ways, Kurt Russell kind of plays John Carpenter in the thing. Just kind of like crotchety and over everyone's shit, and also have to deal with all these surrounding just like this drama.
And
That he's just like, can I please stop doing this?
right. And I love that Carpenter's always been this guy. I saw an interview with him back during the filming of something early on. It was in the 80s or late 70s. And they were asking him about like these famous directors, and he's like, they're shit.
Mm-hmm.
They're shit. And
you know what's funny about that? That was on the set of Halloween. That early in his career, and he's talking about like all these profoundly impactful directors, and he's like, eh.
Yeah. And I love that too, because he's saying like exactly what some of us feel too, is like, look, these guys might be, world famous directors and everybody blows smoke up their butt, but come on, man. Like, that's what I love about directors like him, like Tarantino, although Tarantino smokes his own ass at times. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yes.
But
that's what's funny. I'm such a huge Tarantino fan.
Oh, me too.
I've met him 2 or 3 times, and Tarantino fans, please don't crucify me for saying this, but he's one of my favorite, probably one of my 5 favorite directors of all time.
Same.
But every single time I met him, I could not get away from him soon enough.
No, he comes off as the most pretentious fucking ass ever now. Well, and he always has too.
And he just doesn't shut up. And you're like, you could never get a word in, ever. Like, all 3 times I've met him, it's just like, start talking, and it's just like 5 minutes later, you're just standing there, just like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Meanwhile, Carpenter doesn't want to talk to anybody.
There's a video from I gotta find. I'll send it to you some other if I can find it. But there's a video on YouTube that I saw years ago, and it was this guy going in to a Carpenter signing, holding a video camera, and he's filming the whole line, and he's filming himself walk up to Carpenter, and Carpenter's trying to autograph his book, and there's a huge line. And the guy with the camera's like, "Can you write 'See you at the movies'?" And he looks at the camera and goes, "I'm not writing that." And the guy goes, "Okay, well, can you direct me?" And hands Carpenter his video camera. And Carpenter turns to the camera and goes, "Okay, you see that door? Yeah, walk out of it." And hands him the camera.
Oh, it's pure Carpenter.
What a gem.
Oh, man. You got to love it. Like the most unpretentious guy ever. Like that's what cracks me up, is like he just wanted to make movies. And I think it's funny too, because like at this point he doesn't want to make movies anymore. People keep asking him, what are you guys ever make a movie? No, dude wants to sit at home, make music, and watch basketball and play video games.
He plays video games, watches basketball, plays music with his son and his godson, and smokes hella weed. Like, why does he need to make any movies? The last thing he directed was he helped create Suburban Screams, that true crime show for Peacock, and he directed 1 episode. And he directed it from his living room via monitor while they filmed it in Bulgaria.
Oh, that
is like God shit right there.
That is hilarious. I love that.
He didn't even get off of his couch to direct the latest thing. And dude, like, I'm sorry, but like, if I could have that career, give it to me. I don't want to be on a set.
Oh, that is too funny. Oh man. But yeah, The Thing. It's easy to get off on tangents. But yeah, no, The Thing is, obviously, people, if you've not seen this, it's about an alien parasite that can insert itself into a host, but then become its host. It's really hard to explain in a way, which is weird. But that's the gist of it. And then because it can mimic the person that it's copied now, you don't know if that person is real or not. And so and they're in Antarctica in a very small camp. And so it's a very limited area, and it's this like closed door paranoia fest. So.
That kind of subgenre is other than slashers, my absolute favorite subgenre of horror or any film is you throw these people in one location that they're trapped in, and you watch them tear each other apart and turn on each other. And like while the thing has like in my opinion, and I guess most people's opinion, the greatest practical special effects of
Oh
all
yeah.
time from Rob Bottin. I mean, like it will never be touched.
Yeah.
While it has that and such a wonderful idea with the monster, it's really not about the monster. It's about like us as people, like how quickly we'll turn on each other
Right.
when trust is lost, you know,
Right.
and it plays right into the other film we're talking about, which to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
there are so many similarities between the movie. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
not to skip ahead at all, but like when Tarantino was going to make the Hateful Eight, the two movies he had everybody watch as reference was The Thing and his own movie Reservoir
Reservoir
Dogs,
Dogs. Yep.
which is another movie that was inspired by The Thing. That was
Yeah.
actually Reservoir, like his biggest inspiration for Reservoir Dogs was The Thing.
Right.
And like this idea of all of us just turning on each other, I think is just so enthralling.
Yeah. I think the best way to talk about both of these movies is to talk about them in tandem with each other because one,
Mm-hmm.
I have already talked about them in other episodes, but two, because of both of these movies, because of your choice in picking these, was because they speak to each other, one more to the other. Because Tarantino, as you said, did base this on Reservoir Dogs and The Thing. He based the Hateful Eight on those, and it's this one room like location where there's what 10 people, and so these 10 people, you know, there's the Hateful Eight, but there's like a couple extras,
Mm-hmm.
and then and it's this, you know, pot boiler about who can you trust, who's here, like, and it's very very much informed by The Thing, even more so
Most
than I think than Reservoir Dogs. I mean, it's got the touches of Reservoir Dogs, but it's really more about The Thing in
It
so
is
many
so
ways.
close. It is so close to The Thing that Tarantino got Ennio Morricone, the composer of The Thing, to do the music.
Yeah,
There's a good amount of music in The Hateful Eight
that
that
was
is unused
on.
music
Yep.
from The Thing.
Yep.
You know, it takes place in the snow.
Yep.
The main star is Kurt Russell from The
Yeah.
Thing.
Yep.
Like there's so much that these films could almost like I'm such an addict for double and triple features, trying to find three movies or two movies that maybe
Yep.
people wouldn't think about and put them
Yep.
together. One of my favorite triple features that I like to watch is 10 to Midnight with Charles Bronson, Vice Squad, and Halloween 2.
Mm.
They're basically three movies that take place with this killer trying to get someone throughout the night, kind of thing. And like someone, you know, trying to, you know, stop it. And they pair so well. And
Yeah.
I did The Thing in Hateful Eight a couple years ago, and you know, knowing the connections and stuff, and like it almost feels like sister movies in
Yeah.
like this like the same universe.
Yeah. There's an argument that could be made that Tarantino is almost remaking The Thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with a twist, you know, obviously setting it in you know, in the old, I guess not West, but you know, the old Northwest maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And um you know, it's but there's so many similarities, you know, like you said, Kurt Russell, and in this he's also got a black man as his, you know, as a foil there, to bounce a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that bounce a lot of the conversation off of, you know, where he had Childs in the first one, and in this one he's
Mm-hmm.
got a Major Warren.
And they're both like so good at what we were talking about a minute ago, you know, putting people in a room and seeing them just turn on each other. Whereas
Yeah.
The Thing has, you know, who is the monster, who is the thing, the parasite, the alien, you know, and Hateful Eight is like who has the secret, you know,
Yeah.
who is trying to get the character of Daisy Darmague, you know, who is trying to get her out of it,
Right.
you know, Kurt Russell, John Ruth, his character John Ruth, you know, taking her to be, you know, hanged in the taking her to hang, you know, and there's like a group of people that you don't know if all of them or some of them are there to stop it. And that's
Right.
what's great about both movies, that as a viewer, and this is what I love about both movies. I have seen both movies probably more than most movies. You know, Carpenter's like God to me. When I met my wife, I told her, I love you, but you got to know I'll probably love Carpenter a little more than our children. And, and I've stayed by that. No, but the bad jokes make myself laugh. Sorry,
It's all
but
right.
like what I've seen these movies so much, but every time I watch them, like I'm able to kind of lose myself like watching them the first time. I know
Yeah.
exactly what's going to happen in the thing, but I kind of forget who's the thing for a little bit. And the same with Hateful Eight. And
Right.
what's cool about Hateful Eight is there's so many different versions. There's the theatrical version, there's the
Hmm.
Netflix version. There was the roadshow version that played at
Yeah.
theaters and like the huge projector. I have that version on Blu-ray that someone made for me, and
Oh,
like
okay.
God, it's so much fun to watch that film. And I think both movies are movies that, I mean, Hateful Eight is obviously much newer than The Thing, but I
Right.
think they're both movies that will stand the test of time, and The Thing already has. Whereas a
Right.
lot of movies that people liked from the time of The Thing, they've kind of lost their glory by now. But The
Yeah.
Thing, I think The Thing will never lose its charm ever. And I think
Right.
Hateful Eight, a lot of people don't like Hateful Eight because, in their opinion, not a lot happens. But I think out of every Tarantino movie, most of like the film is a lot of stuff happening, and like both films could also play very well as stage plays, and I think that's what
Yeah.
drew me to Hateful Eight. Hateful Eight's my favorite Tarantino movie, hands down.
Oh,
And
okay.
I know that's not popular, but like I absolutely adore Hateful Eight. I'm talking
Right.
top 20 movie of all time for me,
Wow.
because I love going to see plays.
Yeah.
And like Hateful Eight is almost like you're watching a filmed play of people wrapping these layers off of each other, trying to dissect who they are.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think The Hateful Eight is at times a much more difficult film to watch because, you kind of have to take yourself out of your personal feelings and ethics with that movie.
Yeah.
Like I showed it to my older kids recently, like they're in their late teens, and my kid Dahlia watched it and they were like, I don't know how I feel about this movie. Like, I really want to love it, but like, I'm having such a hard time with the dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that is something that's interesting about it too, is that it is a rough movie to watch at times. There's some sequences in there that are uncomfortable. Um, but and I agree with you. I think that this could very well and probably will sometime in the future probably become a stage play. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think it's one of those ones that will be fascinating for actors to kind of chew into because of those uncomfortable moments and things like that. It would be a lot of fun to see people really kind of get into that. It's one of those movies that, like, when it first came out, I was kind of like, okay, it's a good movie. It wasn't like my favorite. It wasn't like I wasn't super hyped on it. And then over time, the more I've watched it, every time I watch it, I like it more and more, and I really enjoy it now. But I do watch the whenever I do watch it, I watch the Netflix version because that's
Mm-hmm.
the very longest version of it, and there's so much involved in it.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of fun because, like, the first episode of it, because it's split into 4 chapters for the Netflix version. And so that first chapter is just them getting to Minnie's haberdashery.
Yeah.
And that's actually my favorite part of the
Oh,
movie,
me
is
too.
that opening sequence up to them getting there, the interactions between Warren and Chris Mannix and John Ruth and Daisy Domergue. Um, all that is just like, and even that could be so well done in a stage play too, because it's all confined into the coach of the cabin of the stagecoach. And so that
Mm-hmm.
it's so many things could be done so well in a stage play version of this. That yeah, it's a fascinating movie. Just for
Oh, it
just for
really
that alone.
is. And one of the many charms of it for me, and maybe charm is the wrong word because what I'm about to say isn't very charming, but every character in the Hateful Eight is an absolute piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, they're
Like
literally hateful.
every single one, other and the only decent characters get murdered in flashbacks.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And even then, they're kind of still not that great either. So,
No,
because they bring that
there's
up with,
stuff revealed about them. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But that was another thing. Like my kid was like, I don't like any of these people, and I go, you're not supposed to. Like
It's
it's just
literally in the title. They're all
story.
hateful.
Yeah. But like the parts that you're talking about, the that first chapter of the miniseries version, I love that too
Hmm.
because dude, like Walt Goggins as Chris
Oh,
Mannix. Oh my God, he's so good. And by
yeah.
that, I mean he's such a bastard.
Oh
He
yeah.
says the most vile things. He's like, "Oh, you got me talking politics." It's like,
I love that part. Oh no, no,
it's
no. You
so
got me
good.
talking politics. Love that part. He's so
Hmm.
funny. And I was talking to my friend Donna about that recently, when we were
Hmm.
talking about the TV show Fallout that he's on, and how like
Hmm.
this and his part in like Django and other things that he's done have been kind of leading up to this ghoul part that he's playing in Fallout. So,
Yeah. And he's reliable in anything. Like
oh
we
yeah.
love Righteous Gemstones and Vice Principals. Like like Rob Zombie's films are so hit or miss for me.
Yeah.
They'll either be like some of my favorite movies ever, or I'll just despise them. And I've always been the absolute opposite of a fan of House of a Thousand Corpses. But I
Yeah.
love Walt Goggins in that movie. Like his death scene, I
Mm.
think, is one of the best death scenes ever.
I've got to go back and rewatch that because I don't think I've ever noticed him in it. But again, I've only watched that movie maybe twice because I'm not a fan of it either. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and so, yeah. But I just recently read that he was in that, and I was like, oh, okay. I'll have to go back and rewatch that. At least just for that part and
Hmm.
check him out in that. But yeah. What is it? Sam Jackson is one of my favorite actors of all time.
Hmm.
Has been since Pulp Fiction, of course.
Hmm.
And but he is so good in this movie. I
Oh
know we
yeah.
kind of we'll have to get back over to the thing in a little bit too, but like it, it, talking about this movie in terms of how it relates to the thing and everything, it's just that Sam Jackson's performance in this is so like it's pivotal to everything. You don't
Hmm.
realize that, and that's what's interesting about this movie too, is because when you come into the movie, you come into it kind of thinking that Kurt Russell is the main character in this
Hmm.
movie. And then it turns, and then it's really, in a lot of ways, Sam Jackson's the main character in this movie.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh
which
yeah, totally.
Yeah, which shouldn't have been a surprise because you see him at the beginning of the movie anyway. But it's just you're so used to Tarantino using him more as a side character that he's never
Hmm.
really been the focal point for him. Um, but
What
I
I love
find,
about that,
yeah,
uh-huh.
go ahead. No, no,
No,
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say what I love about that switch from like the older films that he did with Tarantino. This one is, yeah, like you said, he was kind of the secondary character. I mean, obviously we love Jewel, Pulp Fiction, but when you think of Pulp Fiction, usually you think of Tarantino and Uma Thurman dancing, or like the heroin overdose or these other scenes.
Yeah,
Or like I love him as Jules, or I love him as Ordell Robbie and Jackie Brown.
oh,
Like he's so good at
yeah,
stealing the scenes. But Hateful Eight, like you said, it's his movie in my opinion.
yeah,
And like what's cool about that character in Hateful Eight is, to be honest, is what's kind of cool about the child's character in the thing. I feel
yeah,
like both movies, a lot of the revelations wouldn't happen without those characters. 100% of the revelations in Hateful Eight wouldn't happen without Sam Jackson's
right.
character. He's the one that basically does the detective work at Minnie's haberdashery to figure out,
Hmm.
okay, Bob is definitely up to no good.
Yeah,
Like it's that combination, that kind of like butting heads combination of McCready and Childs in the thing, and John Ruth and uh,
Major Warren.
General Marquez, yeah, Major Warren in Hateful Eight. It's that kind of butting heads,
Yeah,
juxtaposition between those characters in those films that make them so good.
yeah.
They play off of each other so
They
well.
make very good duos in both of
Mm-hmm.
these. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's what was I gonna say? There was something else I was gonna mention, but man, I'm blanking. Um um but yeah, I think that's what's interesting because it's and Keith David, going back to Childs, Keith David is such a great actor. And like I said, with They Live being my favorite Carpenter and stuff, he gets a much more expanded role in that one. He's definitely, like part of the duo in that one as well. And I feel like just how he's used in the thing is great also, because he
Mm-hmm.
is very much, and especially you get that end scene with both of them and you're just like, well, which one of them is the thing? Because we know We know McCready can't be the Thing, but we also know that Childs can't be the Thing either because he's got the earring, and that was something that
Mhm.
they've said they can't mimic anything inorganic. So,
Well, there's also that confusion in both of those films because,
yeah,
like you said, the thing ends with both of them, and you don't quite know if either of them are the thing or both of them or none of them. You don't really know what's going on. Whereas the Hateful Eight, it ends, and you're like, well, both these guys are definitely going to die. You
right.
know, like
Yeah,
Sam Jackson got shot in the nuts, Mannix
yeah,
got shot to hell. They're going to die. But you even leave Hateful Eight thinking, was Chris Mannix the sheriff or was that just bullshit? Like
right,
both movies have this ambiguous ending that they give you no answers, and
right,
I love
right.
that about both directors. And I love that both directors aren't afraid to kind of do this bait and switch. I mean, like you mentioned,
Yeah,
where you think Kurt Russell's the main character, and then he gets poisoned, killed, and his arm chopped off about 75% in the movie.
yeah,
Whereas in Carpenter does that same thing with Keith David. I mean, not in The Thing, but like in They Live. Like
yeah,
you definitely don't expect Keith David to get shot in the head, and they
yeah,
live out of
yeah,
nowhere.
yeah,
And it's these. They're both directors that are known for never playing it safe, and there's
yes,
so many similarities between both films that like you have to know that there's such a level of respect that Tarantino has
yeah.
for Carpenter and more specifically The Thing in The Hateful Eight.
Oh yeah. No, and that's the thing that's always bothered me too about people who dismiss Tarantino as like this hack who just copies every film he's ever seen. And I'm like, look, every director does that. Like every director takes scenes from movies that they love and they're going to recreate it. Tarantino's just obvious about it because he's like, look, I love these movies and this is my homage to this. I'm going to put it all in this little stew and mix it up in my own way and give it some interesting, great dialogue on top of that. And
Well,
that's
I
where
mean,
it really comes
mhm.
into it. So,
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. And Carpenter's my favorite director of all time, but even he's extremely guilty of that. I mean, Assault and
oh yeah,
Precinct 13 is basically Rio Bravo.
right,
Like it's basically a remake of Howard Hawks movies,
yeah,
like it's it's beat for beat that movie just in a police precinct. And
yeah,
I feel like you said, like every director does that. Every director has inspirations for what they do, whether it be obvious stuff like how much of the kind of synthy stuff we get these days that are throwbacks to Carpenter, or to be
hmm,
honest, a lot of A24 stuff seems to be a throwback to John Cassavetes movies from the 70s.
yeah,
Like every A24 movie could be a woman under the influence, basically. Like I feel like people are very dismissive of that, but like if you've read Tarantino's book, Cinema Speculation, the guy just loves and lives movies, and
right.
like it's a passion that like it's not. I don't think it's ripping off other people's movies. I think it's
No.
almost like love letters to those movies,
Yeah,
told with
exactly.
new, unique stories.
Yeah. No, and I think that's exactly what it is. He takes these scenes that he loves from all these movies, he takes all these influences, mashes them together into an interesting new story that he's creating on his own, throws in a wild fucking soundtrack, and then, he's like, "Okay, here you go. Take it or leave it." And that's the thing with
What's
him too, is like I
mm-hmm.
don't think like he's never been like, don't get me wrong, he's a pretentious, movie fan, but he's never been one of those who's been like, you know, take my movie and if you don't like it, you suck. He's just like, hey, if you like my movie, great. If you don't, whatever. So that's
And
what I like about him too.
I think Tarantino's best at deconstructing what he loves.
Yeah.
I think what Hateful Eight is Tarantino going, how can I make the thing but do it my own way? Well, what I'm
Right.
going to do, take the monster away. We're going to make a Western out of it. Uh, you know, and we're going to have this really good look at not only paranoia and the lack of trust, but also like these awful mentalities that went on during that time.
Hmm.
And like whereas the thing has a lot to say about humanity, I almost feel like, and forgive me, Carpenter fans, I'm definitely one of you, but I almost feel like the Hateful Eight has more to say about a lot of things in the world than even the thing does.
Right. I agree with that. I think that, and part of that is just because the storytelling has changed. Storytelling in the 80s is much different than storytelling, in the 2000s. Even post
Mhm.
2000, I feel like storytelling in a lot of ways just it became, I wouldn't even say more grounded or anything. It just, I don't know, it just evolved in a weird way. It's hard to explain, but I
Mhm.
noticed it in comic books as well.
Mhm.
Just storytelling in general just kind of changed. It kind of weirdly grew up in a way and morphed in a way that and I wouldn't, because I don't get me wrong, I love a lot of classic 70s, 80s movies as well. And I think they all do a good job. And again, I'm a huge Carpenter fan, and I think he does awesome. But I do think that, yeah, the when we're talking the Thing versus the Hateful Eight, I think the Hateful Eight tells that story, like you said, the story of just humanity being awful in a more direct way. Maybe not in a better way, but maybe in a more direct
Mhm.
way.
Totally.
And I think that that's where it succeeds a little bit better. I do think it's interesting too that the Hateful Eight actually started out as a sequel to Django Unchained. It
Hmm.
was originally supposed to be a movie called Django in White Hell, which I don't know if that was regarding the snow or just being around white people. It could have been both. Because I mean, honestly, I mean that's kind of what the movie ends up being too. Is it's Major Warren surrounded by all these crazy white people. And so I can see the bones of what he probably had that as. Um, Still existing underneath all of this story that he then created here. And so I feel like that story is still there. It's like an older Django, and now he's, involved in this. He just changed the story because I guess the character of Django wouldn't necessarily fit in there the way he wanted to tell it. And I do know that the story changed somewhat between
Hmm.
his original script and the script that got filmed because that original script leaked to the internet. So
Yeah, and that original script is so much different.
I'd say I haven't read it. I'd like
So
to read
different.
it. Yeah.
They're like the deaths are different. Who ends up dying is different.
Interesting.
Sam Jackson definitely dies, but much earlier. Like it's such a
Hmm.
different. Yeah, I have it somewhere. If I can find it, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's interesting too because before From Dusk Till Dawn came out, I read a early copy of the script of that too, and that movie even changed quite a bit from the early script to what we end up seeing later on. So
Yeah,
it's always
even
fun to
Reservoir
see
Dogs
that.
did.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the opening scene of Reservoir Dogs at the diner, like the lines that everyone says were actually they were spoken by different characters.
Hmm.
Like a lot of Steve Buscemi's lines were spoken by one of the other guys, and so on. So I love that Tarantino, like he isn't one of those directors that kind of gets precious about his own work. Like he
Yeah.
will switch around so much over time, like I mean, even recently,
Yeah.
his
I was gonna
last
say.
movie, like he was just like, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna do this after everyone's been announced for it and all this stuff. And like I love that he wants to be 100% sure about a project. And I almost feel like Carpenter at this point is like that too, where he's not
Yeah.
going to, like you said, he doesn't want to make movies that much anymore because it's
Yeah.
too much of a pain in the ass. I
Yeah.
feel like, and everyone's like, how do we get him to make another movie? I think the only way
You
to get him to
don't.
make another movie is either we never do, and I'm okay with that. I mean,
Yeah.
he has one of the best filmographies of all time, as far as I'm concerned,
Oh
or you
yeah.
let him do 100% what he wants.
Yeah.
So,
No, absolutely. I agree. I think that, it's one of those things where Carpenter, you just leave Carpenter alone. One,
mhm.
let him come to it. If he ends up having a story that he wants to tell in movie form, give him the money and let him do it at that point. But until then, just let him make his music, do his thing. He's happy
And
doing
he
that.
makes good music. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like he's not just like half-assing stuff. Like he just came out with Lost Themes
Yeah.
4, and I
Yeah.
think it's legitimately some of his best music of all time. Like
Well, and
he is so locked into that project with his two sons that it's just like, dude, like you said, like kind of don't want him to make another movie. Like why should he do something that causes him so much stress when he's having
yeah.
so much fun smoking weed, playing games, and making
Well,
music, you
and
know?
on top of that, every movie he made failed, basically. The audience was never
Yeah.
there for it until later. He's like, why would I bother finding out? Like, one, he's an old dude, don't get me wrong, like God forbid he dies anytime soon, but most of his movies didn't get the appreciation at least 10 to 20 years later. And so
So why go through that now?
why go through it now and then have everybody hate on a movie, and then he's like, well, I'll be dead by the time anybody fucking appreciates it. So
Yeah.
so I don't blame him for
I
not wanting to make
that
a movie.
that and I think he learned the cheat code in life. You know, one of my favorite quotes that he says all the time is like every time a new Halloween movie comes out, that everyone gives him the same question, well, what do you think about that? And he goes, basically every time a new Halloween movie comes out, this is my thought. I put out my hand, they put a check in it, and I'm good. Like,
Right? Yeah. Yeah. No. And I love that he did the music for the recent Halloween trilogy. Like
oh
that was
yeah.
great. Like that was the perfect way to go about that. Like get him to
Oh, and
come in and be a producer and then make all the music for it. One, we get awesome new Halloween music from him. And
mhm.
two, he gets to make a ton of money off of it. So
That
he's
and
gonna be
like
riding on those checks forever.
even outside of that, I love that he did the score for the new Firestarter, which
Yeah.
is cool because he had nothing to do with that movie other than
Yeah.
the music. And it was
Yeah.
a full circle because he was supposed to direct the original but got
Yeah.
fired because the thing bombed.
Yeah.
The thing
Uh,
bombed and he lost Firestarter over it. So it was kind of like a good middle finger to be like, hey, what's up, bitches? I'm doing the new music for the new
yeah.
movie.
Well, I haven't watched the new movie, but I heard it ain't great. So
Yeah, it's it is what it is.
yeah, soundtrack was cool. I heard listened to the soundtrack,
Yes.
so that was good. I mean, that was for for what a lot of people said was like that was literally the only good thing that came out of it.
We have the like my wife and I collect vinyl like
Yeah.
just fanatically, and her favorite one of her favorite movies of all time is The Hateful Eight, and I got her the soundtrack on vinyl, and we were listening to it, and I kind of forgot that Tarantino also does a lot of dialogue in his soundtracks.
You're
So
right.
we were listening to it on a record player with the window open, and there were
No.
so many monologues from the movie that I was like, I need to shut this window now, or my
Yeah.
neighbors are gonna like get mad.
Yeah.
Because God, going back to it being rough, man,
Ah,
it's a difficult watch. But I feel
no.
like if you could get past that and you could
Yeah.
realize that and I think Tarantino gets a lot of flack for his dialogue, and I totally
Hmm.
understand why. I totally get
Yeah.
why. I'm in no way saying that people upset about that have no right to be upset. They
Right.
truly do. But I feel like a lot of people are quick to judge him on that, not knowing that he's actually using it with a purpose.
Yes.
Like
He's
it's not it's
he's using it to make you uncomfortable. Like that's ultimately where it comes down to. And what I don't think a lot of people realize is that when he does that, he's doing that purposely to make you uncomfortable.
mm-hmm,
There's a purpose behind it. It is not gratuitous the way he's doing it. I don't think he
mm-hmm.
does anything without reason.
Oh,
This guy,
100%.
as much as he is a grindhouse-esque director, he is also somebody who worships the French New Wave. And
Mm-hmm.
so he knows what he's doing. And that's what bothers me when people just dismiss him as this, hack, director and everything. Is like, you really haven't watched his movies then, because you would see there's a depth to every single one of his movies that
Mm-hmm.
you you would be surprised about, because there's a surface level, but there's definitely a depth to every single one of these movies that it just lies right there under the surface. You just got to watch
No,
it to get it.
100%.
And this is why
100%. Yeah.
Tarantino continues to make movies. And I think it's interesting too, because you mentioned his latest movie that got scrapped, the movie critic that he was going to do. Um, and I was a little weirded out by that movie, not like in a bad way, but I was just like, this is the way you're going to go out on, like. Like, don't get me wrong. I kind of, it's interesting what he's been doing with the latter half of his filmography, because the first half was like really kind of grindhousey type movies, like just
Mm-hmm.
really, I'm gonna do all like mostly crime stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then in this second half, he's like, I'm gonna do these pseudo historical movies. And I dig that. I think it's funny that he's like, but they're also more than the first half. This latter half, every movie has been a love letter to different movies and different
Mm-hmm.
styles of movies, because Inglorious Bastards was in a love letter to war movies, and
Mm-hmm.
Django Unchained was a love letter to westerns. This Hateful Eight was a love letter to The Thing, and whereas and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was a love letter to Hollywood itself. And so
Mm-hmm.
the movie critic would have fit very well into that framework of what he's been doing. But I was just like, I don't know. I feel like he needs to go out, and I don't think he needs to do Kill Bill 3. A lot of people are like, there's fans who are clamoring for that, and I'm like, please don't make that your 10th movie, because like,
Nope.
as cool as that would be, don't get me wrong. If he were to continue to make more movies, yes, hell yeah, I'd love to see that. But
But you don't want
if
that
he,
to be the last one.
I don't want that to be his last movie. Like, if he's gonna go out on a
Yeah.
high note, go out on a high note. Um,
That's how I
you know,
felt about the movie critic one too,
yeah,
was that I obviously I'd watch it and I'd be excited to watch it, but
yeah,
it's just like at this point, it's like the thought I had is Tarantino, you really want your last movie to be an incel losing his grasp in reality? Like we've just seen that so many times, dude. And I'm not trashing, Taxi Driver or
right,
they're like Blue Steel, that Catherine Bigelow movie is kind of the
yeah.
same thing, like it's like at this point, haven't we seen enough movies about white guys losing their shit because no girl
The
likes them?
Joker.
Like, oh my, I'll shut up about that.
Now, here's the thing. I've
Every
never
single,
seen the Joker, but that's what I've heard it's about. And so I'm just like,
I'm the
I
only
don't care
person
about
I
watching.
know. I'm the only person I know that just fundamentally hates that movie. And I don't mean dislikes. I walked out of that theater hating that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas my wife was just like, let's buy it.
I'm just not a Joaquin Phoenix fan. I've made it known on here. I'm just not a Joaquin Phoenix fan. So
Yeah.
he's just I don't know. There's just something about him I've never been able to, vibe
Well, it's
with.
just like
So
dude, he's kind of like the Morrissey of actors. I love the Smiths. I love the Smiths.
yeah.
I am one.
Yeah.
But God, I can't stand Morrissey. Like he came to
Yeah.
my hometown and did a show, and the entire show in between songs, he guilted my entire valley for having like dairies. Like Joaquin Phoenix will win the award and then shame every single person there for eating the dinner there. Like
Right. Yeah.
it's like, dude, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, yeah. Talk about pretension. Yeah. Yeah, no, no, no. But yeah. But yeah, so I thought the movie critic sounded like an interesting idea, especially because it almost sounded like he was doing a riff on Bill Landis.
Mm.
So I thought that was at least an interesting way to go on that. But yeah, I was just like, it also seemed like a kind of a dig at movie critics in a way too. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the way you want to go, man. Like,
Yeah.
doing a screed against critics. Like, yeah.
Who have kind of been his greatest allies.
Yeah, I'm kind of on both hands. Some have been
Yeah.
really bad against him, and some have been really good for him, and everything. But it's like, yeah, do something. Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood should have been his last movie. Like,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
waited on that one. Like, and
Can you
I don't get.
imagine?
Yeah, I
No,
like if he didn't do another movie, I'd be fine because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was such a good movie. But at the same time, like, I still want more. I don't want him to quit with number 10. Like, that was a weird restriction he
see, I
imposed on himself.
I don't
So
want him to quit either, but it's kind of like that Carpenter thing,
yeah,
like on his
yeah,
own terms. And I do like his reasoning for it, that he thinks that every director he loved kind of went through that phase that they kind of lost their sheen. They lost their charm with later they go on because they're
right,
still doing it and doing it. He doesn't want to do that. He wants
yeah,
every movie that he does to be something he's super proud of. And like, if Hollywood had been his last film, can you imagine how wonderful that would have been with that ending? It
yeah,
is such a warm hug ending to one of history's worst shit stains.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I go to LA a lot for work, and there's this art gallery there called Hyena Gallery. And I don't go there as much these days because the older I get, I think the more sensitive I am to a lot of that stuff. But it's
mm-hmm,
basically a place with like very dark art, and I have like artifacts of like serial killer bills and
mm,
stuff.
right,
And I went there once. And they had like high glossy crime scene photos of the Sharon Tate crime scene. And I remember looking at those and going like, I don't think I'll ever recover from seeing this.
yeah. That doesn't
So
seem
it's
right.
yeah, I'd have to agree. But then again, like, Terrifier's doing great. Uh,
Don't get me started on that.
that's all I will say. But like, it's like knowing that and knowing the severe tragedy of what happened, that warm hug that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was like,
Yeah,
if that was his last film, what a way to go out,
yeah, Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think that would have been a nice capper to, his filmography. I really hope he pulls something off that's in that same vein.
Hmm.
Because I would love to see something like that. Just, go off with, I don't know. It just I don't want to see him do any of the number of things people have suggested, like, because he tried to get a Star Trek movie off the ground for a while, and then
Even a Halloween one.
say what?
He even pitched an idea
Oh yeah,
for a Halloween film many years ago, and I think I would love for him to go out on a bona fide, genuine horror film. I mean,
yeah,
there's that sequence in Hollywood where Brad Pitt goes to the Spawn Ranch, but
yeah,
dude, like that was Tarantino full on. I mean, that was like Texas Chainsaw level
yeah,
intense
yeah,
as far as like
yeah,
what like you felt that scene. So like,
yeah.
I'd like to see him do something like that.
Yeah, I think he could do a really good horror movie. It just I don't know. I don't know what would be like really good for him to go out on. Like I just something that he'd be passionate about, something, again, something that would be like honoring some kind. And a horror movie would be great in that way too, because it would just be like his ode to a horror movie, like these other ones have been odes to things that he was interested in a lot of
Most
ways.
definitely, yeah.
Um, so and I think even his earlier filmography was really that way too when you really look at it. Death Proof is an ode to car chase movies, and Kill Bill
Hmm.
is an ode to the Hong Kong action flicks, and
Hmm.
Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown are odes to crime, kind of stuff. So it just
Hmm.
all of that is just, and each one of those are even separate. Like Reservoir Dogs is more his ode to the Asian action cinema of that time period,
Hmm.
the late 80s, like the John Woo stuff. And then
Better Tomorrow and Hard Boiled
yeah,
and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
and whereas Pulp Fiction is definitely like the kind of older school kind of crime stuff, and Jackie Brown is just his. I mean, because it's based on an Elmore Leonard novel, it's his ode to Elmore Leonard.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of what he's done his whole career is just like, I want to make a cool movie about movies I love. And I think that's what's great
Hmm.
about like his whole entire filmography. And I think in contrast, Carpenter's kind of done the same thing in a lot of ways
Hmm.
too, because Carpenter's played with all the different genres as well. Where Carpenter's known for doing horror wasn't the biggest thing. Like he would bounce back and forth between it. But like I would argue that, because They Live isn't a horror movie. It's more of a sci-fi movie, sci-fi action.
Well,
Big
I,
Trouble
I
in
think
Little China's
Carpenter.
action. Yeah,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Carpenter was influenced, I think, more by sci-fi as a kid, and Carpenter wanted
Yeah.
to direct westerns. That's
Yeah.
what he wanted to do, and he has.
Yeah. You
A
can
lot, and
feel
obviously,
that in his movies that they are
I
more
saw on
akin to,
yeah,
yeah, they're more
I saw on
westerns than
Precinct
anything else.
13. I saw on Precinct 13. Like even, I mean, honestly, even Escape from New York has that vibe.
Hmm.
I
Yep.
like Kurt Russell's basically playing Clint Eastwood.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's what it is. And Big Trouble in Little China. It's like I said, it's a western with kung fu and guns.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it's like it's still there, and I still think he wears his like love for Howard Hawks on his
Oh,
sleeve. Whereas
most
Tarantino's like
definitely.
Godard and all these people.
Right.
Like Jack Hill, Godard. Where it's like Carpenter's just like I love Howard Hawks, guys.
Yeah. 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 No, and he's made no bones about that too. Whenever anybody's asked him, like, in that interview too, about like, all those like those directors that he didn't care for and everything, that they were like, well, who do you like? And he's like, Howard Hawks. He made the best movies. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, he's, and you can see that. I mean, really, you can see pretty much every movie he made has that kind of Western influence, except for maybe Memoirs of an Invisible Man. And
That just had Chevy Chase's influence.
And I think that's ultimately where that movie kind of fails too. You've got Chevy Chase like against Carpenter's sensibilities. Both of their sensibilities don't mesh well. Because Chevy
Not at
Chase,
all.
I feel like he's more of a looser guy, and Carpenter's very much like this needs to get done in this way. So
Yeah, most definitely.
yeah, and Carpenter's always been about like, from what I've seen and stuff like that, he's about filmmaking. He really enjoys making films. When he's able to make them, he really enjoyed the process of making movies. So,
Hmm.
it just nobody appreciated him when they came out. So it's just,
Yeah.
it's just, and that's what's great though to see is that yes, one, he's been able to live long enough now to see everybody go, dude, we bow down to you now, and but for him,
Mhm.
it's like, y'all, it's too late. I'm over it. I'm done. Like, just let me make my music now. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Dude, and honestly, I mean, I've said this a few times, but if we're gonna continue to get that music, you know what? I'm
yeah, oh,
glad
yeah.
you're retired, buddy.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm perfectly fine with that, like, and that's what I think is interesting too. I think with what Tarantino does or should do from this point on, like, make his last movie, yes, but maybe be a producer from now on. Bring up those other things because he kind of started doing that in the early days. When he had like after Pulp Fiction and stuff like that, he was creating like this sub label, that Rolling Thunder sub label and
Yeah.
stuff. And so I think that that would be where he would be most effective, is being a producer and bringing up these guys, these you know young unknowns, kind of what Raimi's doing with the Evil Dead stuff.
Hmm.
Bringing up people and bringing them out into the light of day and championing them, connecting them with money. So maybe they would stuff that like I said with what Raimi's doing, what with Jordan Peele is doing, using that influence they
Hmm.
have not just to make their own movies but also to give on to the next generation, and bring up directors that could definitely benefit from that kind of voice. So
Oh, most definitely. And I'm so stoked that you brought up Rolling Thunder stuff because of that sub label, like I discovered some of my all-time favorite movies because of those. Because I was
yeah,
such a huge Tarantino fan as a teenager that like I went out and rented the Rolling Thunder re-release of Switchblade Sisters
yeah,
or Curdled, which I think is such an underrated like indie movie that he released on that sub label. Like Curdled
right,
is so entertaining that like he has a good eye for great films. And I feel
right,
like at this point, like I mean, I agree with you 100%. You should produce or even move into like curation,
hmm,
like he was doing with the Rolling Thunder sub label.
right. Yeah, I think yeah, if he did something like that where he kind of goes into like making his own like boutique physical media label, even that would be kind
Hmm.
of a cool way to do that, like come out with his own version of like Scream Factory or Vinegar Syndrome or something like that,
Yeah.
like New Beverly or something like a do something
Yeah.
that really kind of because he's got the money and the influence where he could probably get some of these things made and restored here in America,
Hmm.
because there's some stuff that's being restored in other countries that because the rights are super tangled or people want too much money for them, like that's where he could be influential in doing that, because like we still don't have a good um Dawn of the Dead here in the US.
Hmm.
You could have gotten it at one time through Second Sight in UK. They don't have it anymore, but they did have it for a
Yeah.
little while. They had a good 4K disc of that, and which is great. I mean, you can get that through other means like Diabolic DVD and stuff, but
Hmm.
um, you you would need to. I think that it would be beneficial to have somebody like him who's got money and influence, who obviously loves that kind of preservation type of aspect and would be really good at that and finding the kind of the weird and unusual and stuff like that, maybe bringing some of that up a little bit more as well.
And it's also good to have A-list directors like that who champion these movies. Like I
Yeah,
remember how excited I was when J.J. Abrams single-handedly paid for a
yeah,
complete restoration of
Phantasm.
Phantasm. You
Yeah,
know, like as a longtime Phantasm fan, like it warmed my heart to be like, oh, an A-list director like really took one of my favorite movies and championed it and gave us such a beautiful transfer,
yeah,
100% because he adores the movie.
yeah,
Like that kind of speaks on what you're saying about Tarantino. Like, how cool would it be if he used like his influence and what his strings that he could pull to like bring all these great exploitation films, foreign films, all these things that maybe he grew up adoring that we haven't got good releases for. And
yeah,
that goes back to even Hateful Eight. Like we said, that is his love letter to the thing. That is his love
yeah,
letter to Carpenter films. It's love letter to Ennio Morricone and all these great things that he just grew up loving. Like, I'd like to see that continue. And
Yeah.
you know, most people, like a lot of people, like you said, do kind of complain that like, oh, he rips stuff off. I don't see it that way. I've never seen it that way. And if
Yeah.
anything, it made a teenage me go out and search for movies that I had never heard of. You know, like
Right.
my so many of my favorite movies are 100% because of discovering movies through other movies. And I think Tarantino should be celebrated for doing that to fans instead of like looked down on.
Right, exactly. Because whenever they've talked to him about his influences for a particular movie, he always lists them. He's always very clear about, well, this movie influenced me, this movie influenced me. And then that has always been a touchstone for people to go and go, okay, especially back in the days of like Pulp Fiction and stuff like that, because they're like, where did you get this idea from? Like, this is crazy. And he's like, well, I did it here, here, and here. And people are like, French New Wave stuff. What? And so,
Yeah.
that tripped people up in a way. And so they weren't expecting that, and this guy comes from like, just watching everything in the video store. So,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's it's definitely one of those things where I think, filmmakers should be as open as possible about, and I'm not saying there's that any filmmaker isn't. I just think that Tarantino gets shit for it when other directors don't. And
Mm-hmm.
because I think he's just more clear about his influences. And while like maybe homaging slash aping literal shots from similar like movies that he loves and stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, he's going to put in this beautiful shot he loved from this movie, like, the shot of Shoshana running away in Inglorious Bastards, that literally mimics the shot from that movie Shane, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's like he's like, I love that shot, I want to put that into my movie in my own way, and so I love that that's where people can look back and go, oh my god, yeah, that's a great shot, it's really cool, and see that and say, that's from this movie, and like you said, it's for people who want to explore more in movies, that's a great way to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
he's always been very open about that, and I love that about him.
No,
That's why he's
same,
always
same.
been one of my favorite directors. So
No, same. One of my favorite things that I got to do is get murdered in the new Bev in a movie.
that's awesome.
And it's such a cool thing to be like, I got murdered in Tarantino's theater in a movie. It's this awful movie called Blood Brothers. And it's not awful because the director did a bad job. Like he did a good job. It's just like there was a lot of second guessing on that movie. But yeah, I get killed with a hammer in the theater in that movie.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way to do it. Die in Tarantino's theater.
Right.
I think it's funny too because two of my favorite directors that both started around the same time together are Tarantino and Kevin Smith, and they both
Mm-hmm.
moved on to you know not only continuing making films but also now they each own their own theaters because Kevin Smith bought a theater
Mm-hmm.
not too long ago in his hometown that he grew up in, a theater that he used to go to all the time as a kid. And so, he now does something very similar to what Tarantino does. He puts on a lot of, different
That and he
movies and then
employs a lot
screens
of
his,
people.
yeah,
That and Smith employs a lot of people from his movies. Like a friend of mine
yeah.
was telling me that the guy that plays Rick Darris in his movies actually works at that theater, and
Oh, really?
the guy that plays Coey London or whatever in Chasing
Chasing
Amy,
Amy.
like works at the comic book store. Like,
That's so funny.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's great also for fans too, because like one,
Mm-hmm.
these guys probably had, because these guys are just local dudes who he got to do it, and probably never made other movies and everything outside of his work, and just been doing their own thing. But now he hires them to do this, and one that
Mm-hmm.
brings people in more to go, hey, dude, Rick Darris is the
Right.
guy here at
Rick
the
Darris
theater.
gave me popcorn.
Yeah, I mean, and people can look down on that. Oh, like this guy's doing like, dude, it was
No.
just a normal dude, as a
Yeah.
50-year-old pizza delivery driver. I can attest, any job is a good job, as long as
Yeah.
you're happy doing it. Like, I would love to like serve popcorn, well,
Right.
probably not. I would love to work at a movie theater, but I don't think I'd want to serve popcorn. But
Dude, I would do anything.
yeah, but it's I love movies, so I think anytime working in a movie theater is great. Both of my kids have worked in movie theaters now. My son is
Hmm.
still working at a movie theater.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean it's AMC, but AMC's not bad. So
Movies are movies.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, we got wildly off track on all this, but I think more importantly, with both of these movies, we kind of got to talk about how they're in conversation with each other more than going over the storylines again and everything. And I think that's and showcasing how alike both Carpenter and Tarantino are in a lot of ways, because whereas you know like I would argue that Tarantino probably liked some of the directors that Carpenter doesn't like, and Carpenter felt were too pretentious. Tarantino has also shown that while he likes those directors, he also likes a lot of the movies that people would be more dismissive of too, action
Yeah.
and exploitation and stuff like that, that just most people would relegate to the bargain bin. So,
Hmm.
and I
No,
think
yeah,
that's
100%.
ultimately where they both come from, is they both just really love movies and wanted to make movies in their own ways. So,
And like we talk about Tarantino's movies being love letters, and we briefly talked about Carpenter doing that, but like, there's such a hatred towards remakes, I think.
mm,
And but when it comes to the thing, everyone just shuts up. Like that is the movie, like even the anti-remake crowd's like, oh, the thing, yeah, I got nothing to say negatively.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like the
yeah,
thing, the fly. Carpenter took his love for like flying saucer and alien movies and his love for like the thing from another world,
yeah,
remade it with a script written by Bill Lancaster. It's like Burt Lancaster's son. You know what I mean? Like
right,
what? It's
yeah,
like such a solid script. He turns this kind of like early alien movie into something dark,
yeah,
brooding, and he puts his sensibility on it. And he does exactly what Tarantino does, but maybe not as obvious.
yeah,
And like you said, it's like this conversation's more about, I think, the similarities more than the actual plot points. Because I think by now we've all seen the thing, and most of us have seen Hateful Eight, and if you
right.
haven't, you've
Well,
seen
you
the
should
thing,
definitely,
so you've
yeah,
seen
yeah,
Hateful Eight. Uh,
yeah.
but
And you
like they're
should
both
watch the
good.
Hateful Eight if you haven't seen it,
Yeah.
and go watch
Oh,
that Netflix
totally.
version because it's so good.
They're both just such good examples of how easy, and it even go there. If you're gonna do a triple feature, I would even put on God, what is it? Drawing a blank. The episode of Twilight Zone.
Mm.
Uh, the one was it Maple Street? Classic Twilight Zone. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank on the title, but
Yeah, I don't know Twilight Zone enough.
it's basically about this whole neighborhood that's turning on these people, and like there's such good stories about how quickly we will turn on each other, which we can see in real time playing out these
Mm.
days. I mean, there's
So
so much going on in the world that growing up, as bad as it was in the 80s and the 90s, like
right,
I cannot fathom any of the stuff happening now being acceptable even then. How
yeah,
quick everyone is turning on each other so viciously. And I think both of these films stand the test of time because both of them speak on just that. Both of them speak on how good people and bad people, no matter like if you're good or bad, if you're in the wrong situation and there's mistrust and there's all this stuff, you will tear each other apart. And I like I said at the beginning, I think it's such an enthralling and just really interesting look to sit down as a viewer and watch films that really touch on that. And these two I think do it better than any movies.
I think if you're going to do a triple feature with these two, add in The Mist. That would be
Yeah,
a good one to do as well. And that
perfect.
Twilight Zone episode is called "The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street."
Yes, yes.
Yeah. It says a pair of invaders manipulate electricity, create havoc for a small community, and expose humanity's self-destructive prejudices. So it
Yep,
feels like, yeah, I don't know Twilight Zone all that much, unfortunately, but yeah, that definitely sounds like it would fit very well with these two in the
totally.
theme. But yeah, no, I dig that too. It's always interesting to watch that kind of a devolution of humanity, to see uh just how quickly how quickly that we all turn on each other, because
Hmm.
it's very true. We probably turn on each other really fast when the chips come down to it, and you see that even in a lot of other things. Any zombie movie, you see it, how quickly people will turn on each other to survive.
Yeah,
And
totally.
it's a sad fact that it this has happened multiple times. We've seen it in history, and that's why it's so prevalent in our stories as well. So it's one of those things that's a fascinating look at when it's done right as well. And these two movies definitely get it right.
Hmm.
And I very much would advocate anybody watch this double feature. It is a glorious double feature. Watch the thing first, watch Hateful Eight second, and then you can watch those touchstones. Like we said, Ennio Morricone did the music. It's one of the few times Carpenter hasn't done the music for one of his movies, but he did the music for the thing, and then there was some stuff that wasn't used. And when Tarantino was putting together the Hateful Eight, he um, asked Morricone to do the score, and Morricone was like, "Okay, yeah, here's some music I didn't use for the thing, and that will fit pretty well." And I would argue that music in the very beginning, when you're first coming into the movie, that is so feels like the thing. That
Hmm.
especially because it's across this barren, white, snowy wasteland, basically, and it's a great sequence, and that music just feels like you're back in the thing.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So, but yeah, I think that it's interesting to watch these two filmmakers because in a way, it's almost like Tarantino picked up the baton left behind by Carpenter, because when Tarantino was coming up was right when Carpenter was kind of, petering out,
Hmm.
and kind of losing his passion for it. And I feel like, they kind of, spoke to each other in a way without speaking to each other, obviously, that their works kind of, in a strange way, work very well together. Their
Hmm.
filmographies work very well together.
Oh,
So
I think so too, for sure.
yeah. But yeah, is there anything that we haven't mentioned that you definitely want to pick up on before we close this out?
Honestly, I think I've touched on everything. Like I was trying to think of it now, and I think I'm good.
All right, well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
Sure. I'm always on Twitter. I will never call it X.
Yep.
At at Harper is just okay. I kind of keep my Instagram and Facebook private because of family
Right.
stuff. But Twitter, music. You could go to Walmart. No, I'm just kidding. You could go to Walmart and get any movies I've done off the bargain rack. Uh, but if you go to rainydaysforghosts.bandcamp.com,
Yes.
you could download music. I've gotten to the point where I just kind of put it on there, pay what you want, even if it's nothing. That does not bother me.
Right.
Download it, whatever. It's on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music. That stuff, I'm always I always love to make music. So if anyone I do this thing called Rescore that I
Yes.
like doing for people. Is basically if there's a movie that you kind of like, that you'd kind of like an original piece of music in that same kind of sandbox. I really
Mm.
love kind of trying to recapture feelings of movies. So I do that kind of all the time for people and just for myself too. So like I'm always into making music. Writing articles, Manor Vellum, Scream Magazine, Composer Magazine, writing stuff. But that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah, definitely go check out Harper's music over on Bandcamp. It's Rainy Days for Ghosts. Rainy Days for Ghost. And it's really good music. I dig it. I've been digging it for a while now. Like I said, one of their songs is used as my uh, opening and closing song. So it's a really, really good music. Go check it out. And I did want to talk to you about it, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it.
Mhm.
You just had a signing at Dark Delicacies for Scored to Death, which was
Yes.
an album that you did with several very famous composers.
Yeah.
You want to tell
Blake.
us about that?
Yeah, sure. Blake Fitzgerald wrote two books so far called Scored to Death, and they're conversations with horror composers, about their process and stuff. And he's currently making a documentary about horror composers with all the best composers, and he wanted to do a companion album of various film composers tackling some of their favorite themes. And he did a record, an LP that just came out, and so many composers are tackling songs that they love. And he asked me to do two of them, but time got in the way, so I wasn't able to do my second one, which coincidentally was going to be The Thing.
Oh,
So I wasn't able to finish that one yet, but I do my take on the Puppet Master theme, and it's not one that I did for Dr. Death. It's a completely original one, and it came out good. And we did a signing a couple of days ago at Dark Delicacies, which was very surreal because I mean, I've only been doing it for half a decade or so. So sitting next to like Alan Howarth, Richard Band, Harry Manfredini, Joe Bashara, Holly Amber Church, all these Christopher Young, all these great composers who were not only friendly but very welcoming to me as a peer. It was one of the best days of my life, and it was one of those informative moments that you walk away from inspired to just go all out at yourself.
that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to hear your version of The Thing, and um, any more of your music. Of course, I'm always hyped for whatever you put out. So
Appreciate it.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on again. We'll have to get you on again here soon again, and talk about some more fun stuff.
Sounds good.
Thanks again to Harper for joining me. On next week's episode, Ashley Thomas returns to the show to talk about the MCU Disney Plus show, She-Hulk. Thanks for listening. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast is Gratitude, composed by Harper Smith. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.